Hello and welcome back to Gamers Remorse. Today we're taking a look at
Pages of War.
Pages of War, M.O.D.E.
Pages of War, M.O.D.E. is a 2 to 4 player game from J Cloud Entertainment. Each player takes on the role of a bard, telling the tales of one of the 4 Western races, men, orcs, dragonkin, and elves. Play will take the course over various epics, as a player attempts to kill another player's kings and queens. The final player with a king or queen left in play, when all others have been defeated, is victorious. Each player's play area is created by placing their 5 nobles, their king, queen, and the 3 jacks, face down in whatever orientation they desire. They then place 3 spoils face down above their royal row, with a face-up card placed on each spoil. These 3 chapters will make up a player's offense and defense throughout the game. Each player will then draw 3 cards, and play will begin. On a player's turn, they will walk through the 3 phases, draw, action, and pass. First, a player will draw up to 3 cards. If you already have 3 cards in your hand, you will skip the draw phase. Once drawing is complete, a player can take 3 actions, including creating a new chapter, done the same way as it was during setup. Note you will only have 3 chapters at any one time, so you can only create new chapters if you previously lost one. Flip one of your face-down monarchs face up to use the card's effect. Note, once flipped face up, the noble will remain face up for the remainder of the epic. Use a hero's effect on a card in play or in your hand. Add an additional spoil to a chapter. To do so, take the top card from your draw pile, placing it face down under a chapter. Note, you can only have 3 heroes per spoil, so to increase the chapter strength, you must add additional spoils to the chapter. Add a hero card from your hand to the chapter that still has an available hero slot. Shuffle your hand back into your draw deck, drawing back up to 3 cards. A player can also play an ace card whenever they desire, and doing so does not count against their 3 action per turn limit. Additionally to these actions, a player can attack an opponent with one of their chapters. This is done in 3 steps: declaration, conflict, and determination. Note, on the first round, players may not attack one another. First, declare one of your chapters as the attacker, and declare which of your opponent's monarchs, face up or face down, you choose to target. The target's controller will then choose to protect the monarch, or to allow the monarch to be attacked. If they choose to protect it, they will declare which of their chapters will be the defender. If an attack ever reaches a monarch, the monarch is flipped over. The attacker's army value is compared to the defending player's chapter or monarch. The player with the lowest army value is defeated. The defeated army will then discard cards from their chapter, equal to the difference of the chapter size. If it is the last card from the chapter, it is discarded, and the player who wins will collect the spoils for defeating the player's chapter, adding them to their discard pile. If the attacker defeats a monarch, and the monarch has a jack, the defeated player will add the jack to their hand. If the monarch has a king or queen, the card is destroyed and removed from the game. If the attacker is defeated by the monarch, then the player is royally defeated, and all the cards from the chapter are discarded, and the spoils given the victor. Note, no one wins in a tie. Once a player loses both the king and the queen, they are eliminated from victory, but not from the game. Once a player is eliminated, the remaining players will take all the cards in play, shuffling them back into their pile. They will then place one of the jacks from among the cards back in the royal row if there are 4 less cards in said row. Cards in the row are then rearranged face down once again, 3 new chapters are created, and play will resume as it did at the start of the game. On an eliminated player's turn, they can look at all the cards that they have and choose one of them to add to the active chapters, or they can choose not to do anything. This will continue until all players are defeated.
Alright, let's go ahead and check it out. So let's start off with look and feel. Out of 2, I really liked the way it looked. There are very few things in this game that I took issue with. But if there was something, it would be the back of the different race cards. It's like an old leather book sort of a thing, and a lot of people do this. I've seen it in a lot of games, actually. They take an old leather book and then put on some like very crazy font on it to write something out. It's very difficult to read because the uneven texture of leather usually obscures some of the words, and so it just didn't pop as much as it could have if it were like an all-black screen sort of a thing. They also used a lot of serif fonts, which made it somewhat difficult to read, but beyond that, the artwork was really cool. They obviously spent a lot of time or money on it, and I just really liked it. The icons were great as well, so for each of the different kinds of units, they had an icon, whether it's a winged or an archer or battle axe or a lance. I really liked that. And then they kind of had stories on some of the different heroes as well. I just really liked the look and feel of the game. And it did feel like we were pairing off against each other as well. So Just when the game was set up. Not that that's really part of the game, but that's the organization of it.
Yeah.
Well, what was your guys' thoughts?
Oh, me.
We're going clockwise.
I like going anti-clockwise.
Counter.
I agree. I really liked the art, especially like the cards themselves, the numbered cards. Just you had the icon of the race, and then on the back you kind of had this silhouette of the form or the type of card, the archer or knight or swordsman or whatever. So I really like that. I definitely agree with the given number.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with 175 as well. The art was amazing. There's even some fun flavor text on the art as well. And like Sean said, the only downside, I guess the only two downsides this game had for me, one was the card backs. I would have liked something that's a bit more readable than the chosen font. But I do like that idea of the page book. I would have kept that. I would have just made it so it has more of a readable font. I liked the icons. I just think there's maybe some less shading that might have helped there. And then the other thing is the rule book. It's 8 pages with very small font, which was kind of tedious to read, and that acted as a barrier of entry as well. But I agree. 175, solid.
All right. What about balance and mechanics? What do you think of that, Brian?
Each race is balanced differently. They're each specialized. So as humans, I was much more defensive. The elves and the dragonkin are much more offensive. We haven't experimented with the orcs. But as a defensive race, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to turtle up and kind of hide in my shell here, which is beneficial. But had they have known that, they probably would have been a lot more aggressive earlier on. And so it's one of those, it's a learning thing. The more you play the game, the more you'll start to understand. But you have to get over that barrier of entry. So I would say out of 2, I'd probably give it about a 1 1/4, 1.25 on balance mechanics. Agree, disagree?
I would agree. So initially I was thinking, this has room for a lot of strategy here. I could really get into this, really sink my teeth in. But then it kind of, as the game went on, there were some fickle aspects of it. Maybe not fickle, but fiddly.
Yeah, there's a lot of upkeep.
Yeah, there's a lot of upkeep. So I would have to attack a stack of heroes that Brian had in his chapter, but I had no idea what his special abilities are. They're all laid out on the table, but it's written in 8-point font. So I'd have
and
to,
it's upside down to you.
And it's upside down. So I'd have to crawl over there, read it upside down, maybe try and make it make sense. There were several times where I attacked him, and he's like, I just have to tear this out, and then you lose your whole army, and that's unfortunate for you. It's like, maybe there's a better way to call that out, like a big red star on there or something. You attack this, bad things happen. Other fiddly things are, there's this little card that they give you that gives each character a special bonus based upon whether it's winged, or a swordsman, or an axeman, or a lancer, or an archer, or a winged person, like going back again, You get a +2 bonus for each unit you have against their units, which, that's not bad if it's 2 people in a chapter, but if it's 8, oh my, that's a lot of counting. And then you stack on an extra effect from a jack or a king or a queen, and all of a sudden there's a lot of math going around on the table, and sometimes you're not sure if you're right, but you're pretty sure. You just don't want to count it again. Yeah. So it just seemed like very fiddly.
Yeah.
So I would agree. 1.25 seems about right.
I think you guys covered it all. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So.
All right. And Eric, how do you feel about the pace at which the game went?
I think this one it was much slower. It was a lot of reading the cards, and it wasn't just reading your cards, it was reading other players' cards. So I'd probably give it a 0.25 out of 1, just because there was so much that you had to do in order to progress.
I think, I would agree with you. But the more you play the game, like most living card games, much more so than collectible card games, it gets quicker. So you get to know all the cards, and you're like, that guy has these things, I know these bonuses. But again, you have to get over so much to get to that point. And I feel like with a memory like mine, I wouldn't get there. And then you're starting to cover stuff up, so you're like, okay, I know he has an Azure Knight that has a bonus with a rider, but I don't know if he has a rider because they're covered up. There's a lot of reading and maneuvering, and hey, do you mind if I rearrange these? And
right.
So
I would maybe go for a 0.5. You had what, 0.25 on that?
0.25, yeah.
it wasn't that slow. I could see AP creeping in, but for the three of us, it seemed to progress pretty fast. Or at least I was able to be like, oh, that's interesting. He has a stack of those. Where it wasn't my turn, I was looking at other people's cards, not so much what they were doing. One thing that I think would help out greatly is if you were able to draw your cards at the end of your turn, thus giving you more options to analyze, not at the beginning of your turn, but at the end. That would have sped things up. But I would still go more towards 0.5. It wasn't unbearably slow, like some turns in Catan or something like that, where it's just like, come on.
Yep.
So I don't know. Would you guys go the 0.5 or 0.25 still? I could go either way.
I could as well. I mean, I'm leaning more towards the 0.25. Just
Okay.
I think with that barrier of entry to start off with. I mean,
And I'm thinking too, like, we are all quicker players than a lot of people we play with.
That's fair. Yeah. 0.25 is fair. Okay. For theme, I really liked it. I mean, this is the classic fantasy theme, right? So out of 2 points, I would easily give it 1.5. Another cool thing is on each of the cards, well, not all of them, but quite a few of them, they had a little excerpt of text. I'm not sure if they wrote it or, it came from somewhere else. And then the title of so I played the dragons, and they had the titles, of that dragon and a cool little icon, some awesome artwork. The theme was definitely there, and I could absolutely see, the dragons are fighting the men who are fighting the elves. You could make up any backstory you want on that. And then the orcs, of course, they don't get along with anyone, so the theme was baked in. So I'd give it 1.5.
I'd agree. The only thing is you're short one race, the dwarves, and you've got the Battle of Five Armies.
Which, that's actually one of the things I was going to say is, I mean, there's expandability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could add dwarves, they can add orcs, they can add goblins, they can add kobolds.
Gnomes.
Gnomes. Widget's a halfling, not a gnome. So, I mean, there's a lot of expandability that they could do down the road.
Tiefling.
Yeah.
Might be trademarked.
Devilkin.
Devilkin.
Devilkin, I think.
So, 1.5?
Yeah.
So we gave that. All right. Brian, what do you think about easy to learn? Was it easy?
No.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a fairly small, fonted rule book. So after you get your magnifying glass out and you start to learn it, there's a lot of terminology, and they give you a little cheat sheet of terminology, which is still a really small point. There's like 12 terms that you have to start to realize. And so it's like you have a page, and you have a chapter, and you have a story, and you have an epic, and you have a conflict, and you have your historia. And there's just so many things that you have to learn new terms for. And that's just one barrier of entry. Then there's, learning the icons. Then there's learning the different connections. Not all Azure Knights have the same bonus. So I can't just be like, oh, it's an Azure Knight. I have to so it's a specific bonus on this one. So there's a lot of stuff you have to learn. So it's definitely not easy to learn. So I'd almost say 0.25 out of 1. Because even once I know it, teaching it to someone else will take a while.
Okay.
And I will wreck them if I don't give them the time to learn.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would disagree with anything you said.
No.
So 0.25? All right. And then Eric, replayability. What do you think?
Now that I know how to play and we've played through initially we were dealt each race, and a lot of my abilities came into play with orcs. So I think it would play very differently with different players and different races. So I think the replayability is high. It's just a matter of getting past that barrier of entry, getting someone interested enough to continue playing and playing again. Maybe not necessarily like right off the bat, but a couple times a week maybe. I'd probably give it a 0.75.
0.75 out of 2?
Oh, out of 2, sorry.
I was like, whoa! That's really good praise for
1.5.
Right
Out of 2.
Yeah.
For some reason I thought it was 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good score, 1.5 out of 2. I would agree. Because I mean, we played as this one race that was just dealt at random initially, but then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I want to play as the Dragonkin now. I want to play as the elves. I want to try the orcs. Like, you want to experiment with that. And then we mentioned afterwards, like, I could see if you're doing a 2-player game saying, I'm going to be the alliance of the elves and the Dragonkin, and you can start mixing and matching. And, so I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you could try over and over. But I don't think I would do a lot of games in one night.
No. Yeah.
So that's why I'm not going to say it's a 2. I'm going to say I'm going to agree with your 1.5 because it's a game I play a lot with gaps between.
Yep.
Do you agree, disagree with us?
Yeah, I totally agree, I think, across the board. Mm-hmm. So, the one thing I will say about this game that stood out to me, of the ones we played so far of the competition, is this is easily the most ambitious project of all of them.
Agreed.
And I love that. It gave it a lot more depth to the game than some of the others we've played have. Instead of just rolling a dice, you are kind of crafting 3 different armies, protecting your royals. So it's a bit chess, it's a bit set collection. It was very interesting and very unique.
Yeah.
And I really liked that.
Yeah.
So we gave Pages of War a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Again,
The author, you.
The author, you. Again, this...
No, that was just me.
I was like, that's a clever catchphrase.
Again, this is a entry into our Gamers Remorse Killer Game Challenge on the Game Crafter contest. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
What's M.O.D.E stand for?
M.O.D.E.
Men, orcs, dragkin, and elves. Elven folk. So
I actually didn't know that.
That was me.
Death from above!
I didn't want to say
And
it.
to be honest, I really don't care because I don't have to work tomorrow, but you guys do.
Heyo.
Don't tout an Asian on his math. Aaron, you'd be
Snap.
proud.
All right.